Have you had enough?
Arcane Season 2 has finished, and it wasn't what I expected. After blueballing us for 4 years, Riot has released the second season of one of the most successful shows of all time, and they did not hold back. It's been reported the 2 seasons have cost a cool $250 million, making it the most expensive animated series ever produced. You, know what else is $250? That new Jinx skin. Shit, I mean, you gotta recoup that money somehow. I don't think it was ever a question that Arcane was going to look good. Is the grass green? Do I have no bitches? I do want to give a nod to Fortiche for pushing their capabilities to the max with different styles and techniques. You could make an entire video just on the art and the little League-related Easter eggs because they are everywhere in Season 2. However, the question that I'm asking is whether or not the story and writing could be on par with Season 1, and that, I'm not so sure. Perhaps my relapse into playing League has compromised my mental state to the point where I'm just upset looking at characters from the game, but I think there's a few key reasons holding Arcane back from a perfect adaptation. Well, as Jinx says,
it's all going to shit.
She's the major cause for this shit. Attempting to blow up the Capitol will do that, but gone to shit it has. If only we had a 2013 music video detailing said events, maybe we could have avoided this. Was a pretty big explosion though. Let's check in on some of the damage. Well, I guess that Hextech coffin idea might get some use after all.
Hey, Grandma just died, ship her off in style with a Hextech coffin.
Counselor Kiriman's death was tragic, but the sheer number of events sparked by this attack is insane. Jinx hunted both in Piltover and Zaun before she becomes this hero figure. Vi joins the Enforcers and violates the Geneva Convention. Victor's the Messiah. Jace, Echo, and Heimerdinger teleport to different worlds. Ambessa starts a war. The Black Rose goes after Mel. Singed feels love. Vander's a furry. This dumbass is still on my screen. And lesbians. Okay, that last part, not that bad. But the sheer amount of events that happen to different characters that we all follow is honestly a bit overwhelming. With this being the supposed final season for this story, I wasn't sure how we were going to get a resolution to everything. I refer to Act 1 as the aftermath because we're reconnecting and revisiting our characters after the attack and seeing their plans for the future. It's clever, I know. Probably should check on Caitlyn, the whole mom dead thing. One of my favorite scenes early on comes when Mel states she doesn't know how they'll face this crisis without Counselor Kiriman. We pan to a shot from behind her broken chair and Caitlyn is filling that negative space, basically saying that she has to step up big time. And what's her first order of business? Make Vi a cop. Bold strategy. She declines and goes on a drunken stupor. Exactly what I do when faced with a difficult situation. That is until a Chem Baron attacks the Counselor's Memorial using new technology like the Chempunk Chainsword and Turbo Chem tanks. With nobody around policing the people of the underworld, an attack like this felt like only a matter of time. A public display of defiance. If the people of Piltover were on the fence about war before, this put them firmly over it. While this attack made sense, I couldn't help but think the timing was too perfect. How would the Chem Barons have the prep time and organization they did? Almost like they got an invite to the event. Oh wait, this is a great misdirection for the viewer. The acts of a few deranged individuals is actually a ploy by Ambessa to start a war. I know it isn't fully explained until episode 3, but the show basically reveals Ambessa's plans on episode 1 without even saying anything. Mel saying they must have had help from someone up here, and then cutting directly to Ambessa like, oh, I wonder who could have done it. Caitlyn barges in to discuss her strike team plans, and then it cuts to Ambessa again, who has an expression of, okay, I can use this to my advantage. She doesn't say a single word during the scene, could have advised Caitlyn, but decided to lay back and see what she was capable of. And thus we have Ambessa's top dog arc, advising and influence the supposed people of power in Piltover to align with her own wishes. While Piltover has been getting royally fucked recently, things arguably might be worse in Zaun. At least there is the threat of Hextech and the Enforcers topside, but the Undercity is quite literally the Wild West now. And just as Caitlyn feels the weight of responsibility from her mother's death, Jinx feels the weight of Silco being gone. She wants to hold on, reaching, grabbing, but his body is no more. But even when we think he's fully faded away, his voice remains a guiding instrument. Silco was one of my favorite characters in Season 1, so hearing more of these psychosis-induced conversations with Jinx was a strange but welcomed addition. But, you know, as the song goes, you're gone, sucker. Jinx has now lost her father, her sister, her other father. There's basically nothing left. However, there's a recurring theme of whenever Jinx is on the brink of total madness, someone comes in and gives her even the smallest bit of hope. She's able to align herself with Savika based on their shared relationship with Silco, and Isha being around makes her have something to protect. Perhaps another turning point for the story and Jinx. Everything might be okay. No, instead we're just committing war crimes. Can't be a good feeling to watch your sister work with the people who killed your parents and attempt to gas out your entire home. The only rational response? Reverse war crimes. Act 1 with Vi and Caitlyn was probably my least favorite storyline. They kinda just pissed me off the entire time. Vi constantly assuring Caitlyn her sister is gone, and that she's here for her, to constantly, although inadvertently stopping her from completing her mission. The first of multiple strangely timed makeout sessions gets Vi back on track, only for everything to get completely fucked again. The fight scene with Vi and Caitlyn versus Jinx and Savika looked insane, but was terribly executed. Savika's down, Vi has Jinx pinned. As soon as that gun is shot from Isha's hand, all they have to do is continue to keep them pinned and make sure Savika doesn't go and blow up the entire area. Jinx has virtually given up, and Isha is a child, not Muhammad Ali, so I think they both could be subdued. But admittedly, Kate is acting out of pure revenge, so she doesn't decide to think logically. I still think she could have made the shot. Her whole thing is that she's an insane sharpshooter, literally has the passive headshot. I think she could have domed Jinx, sure, may have picked up the All-Pro achievement in the process, but as they say, it is what it is. I originally was more annoyed with Vi, but watching it back, the situation is handled so poorly, they both deserve a hit to the stomach. We can't go through Act 1 without talking about my GOAT, Victor.
Victor Nation, how are we feeling?
We saw how the Hex Core started to adapt to his body in Season 1, but with his injuries from the explosion, it fully merged with him. I know Arcane doesn't usually follow the established lore in-game, but this was one of the times where they definitely took inspiration. Although he operated on himself in the game lore, the objective becomes the same, becoming a being that no longer relied upon or was inhibited by emotions. Jace assumes Victor must be cold after assimilating with the Hex Core, but he doesn't feel cold, rather a charge. Feeling he has drifted too far, he leaves Piltover for Zaun and realizes he can provide the same changes to others. His idealistic hope to better society and free them from emotions became the concept of the glorious evolution. I simultaneously like and dislike the new lore presented in Arcane. I enjoy how Victor undergoes a slow change with the use of his power, and some of his humanity remains. You can timeline his descent through his conversations with Skye, which I was a big fan of, but the ascension into Space Jesus was a strange decision. Fusing with the Hex Core removes his identity as an inventor, who very well could have been capable of creating similar mechanical augments with Hex Tech. Now he's just an OP magic messiah. It just felt a bit lazy to me. Also, rip Blitzcrank. The thing that was probably the most confusing to non-League players was the intervention of the Black Rose. These random thorns attack Ambessa, abduct Mel, and literally kill Elora with some sort of faceless mastermind that can control people. Elora gotta be the most unfortunate case of wrong place, wrong time. A quick rundown though for ya. The Black Rose is basically a secretive group of Noxian aristocrats that work in the shadows to promote their own interests. LeBlanc, Vladimir, Elise, and Cassiopeia are champions of the Black Rose, with LeBlanc being the matron. Her passive ability creates a clone, so we can assume that she's the one controlling people, and there's further evidence with her golden eyes and the chains used later, which is one of her abilities in-game. Ambessa's bloodlust and desire for war in Zaun with Hextech clearly went against what the Black Rose wanted, so they intervened. Probably could have just titled Act 1 Ambessa Wins, because everything seemed to go her way. The attack on the memorial was a success. She recruited Salo, staved off the Black Rose, and used the gas attack on Piltover to align herself as an ally. She knows she won't be in charge as a Noxian, but uses the respected name of House Kiraman to appoint Caitlyn, who has no idea what the hell she's doing, as commander. And with that initial hole we saw Caitlyn have to fill has become much, much larger. While Act 1 felt overloaded with information and storylines, Act 2 surprisingly ties everything together. What felt like 5 or 6 different stories, not really connected at all, are slowly converging into a single timeline. The unrest continues to grow between the citizens of Piltover and Zaun, especially with the increased intervention of Noxian soldiers. One side looking for order and control, and the other looking desperately for something to believe in. That thing to believe in? Jinx. Whether or not she wants to be involved, she has the best chance to rally the Undercity. But she doesn't want to, and I loved that part. She's still just a teenager. Having scuttle fights with Isha is a much more appealing prospect than being the face of a resistance. People say she's some uncontrollable psycho, but here she feels just like a normal girl. A sister. One of my favorite scenes in all of Season 2 is Jinx's conversation with Silco. She says she has to bother someone and heads to his office. I could be completely misinterpreting the scene, but it felt symbolic to her belief in Silco. Even after his death, we've seen him guiding Jinx, and his office chair moving back and forth to cover her is like his last bit of influence flickering away until ultimately his back is completely turned, leaving Jinx alone for her own decisions. Zaunites are looking for a symbol, and the longer she stays away, the more imitation arises. What's worse than one supposed psychoterrorist? Multiple psychoterrorists. Piltover recognizes this and crashes a rally, arresting the civilians involved, including a peculiar science man I have yet to discuss. We've seen this man briefly in Season 1, and at the end of each episode in the first arc of Season 2, performing some weird experiments, killing some wolves, and ultimately making this man-beast hybrid. Unless you were told by the Netflix subtitles or credits, you have no idea who this is. Let me introduce you to Singed, and the thing he's working on. Warwick. This beast has an insatiable lust for blood, and apparently since Singed uses some of his own blood in the creation, he can control it to an extent. Essentially planning his own capture, Singed uses his blood to draw the beast towards the prison. Showcasing Warwick's blood hunt ability, and then the callback to his rework trailer with the clawed out cable car and the jump towards the screen, that is a wet dream for League references. The one thing Singed didn't account for was Jinx to be at the scene, and for his beast to still have his mind, controlling his rage and revealing himself as Vander. Also, I need to point it out, it's happened a couple of times, but if Riot does not capitalize on Jinx getting a shimmer dash, that is a missed opportunity. It's like one of her main tools that she's been using to fight in all of Arcane. Back onto Singed though. Why would he even operate on Vander to create this beast in the first place?
Why does anyone commit acts others deem unspeakable? For love.
Even typing that out again just feels wrong. Go ahead and read the personality section on the League wiki and compare it to the Arcane character. But what is this love he speaks of? He takes Caitlyn and Mbessa into his lab where we see a girl, presumably dead, inside some sort of strange pod. We're never told who this is, but with some context clues, we can pretty much confirm this is Oriana. If you were to look up Oriana's lore, her father was listed as Corin Revik. Caitlyn calls him Dr. Revik, you put 2 and 2 together, bada boom. The wiki has now also been updated to include Singed as her father, so yeah, it's confirmed. It's just so strange, bro went from being an experimental torturer to a loving father. I will say I much prefer this timeline. His life's goal is to find a cure for his daughter, so when Mbessa approaches him with a deal to get him anything he wants in exchange for Vander, he's not gonna say no. Well, about time for a family reunion, wouldn't you say? But first... One of the most criminal things about this season is that we only got to see drunken goth Vi in a fight club for only 3 minutes. However, there were some cute moments in it, like Jinx betting on her during a fight and constantly looking over her while at the bar. Showed she still cared. But caring only does so much. The only thing that was going to potentially mend the relationship of Vi and Jinx was for Vander to miraculously be alive. Although he is a furry, he is alive. Kinda. And just as he was able to discern Jinx's family, he embraces Vi. And for a moment I thought, maybe things will get better. And then I remembered what show I'm watching. So how about that Jace guy, huh? Haven't heard much from him. His best friend becomes a lifeless robot messiah, and he gets teleported to a different dimension. I don't know what that man's seen, but he has clearly been through some shit, and holy fuck, he just murdered Salo with a hammer. We don't know what happened to the guy, but he seems like he's off the deep end. This is where our stories converge. Vi and Jinx take Vander to Victor in hopes he can cure him, Jace goes after Victor, and Mbessa comes to take Vander back and use him as a weapon. Even though people are losing their humanity, you can't deny that Victor built a beautiful sanctuary. Though this glorious evolution is occurring, Victor still seems strangely human, especially when working on Vander. I still don't know how he's able to communicate with Sky. I guess you never doubt Space Jesus, but having someone around who understands him has kept him mostly grounded. I called Act 2 Decisions because a lot of them get made in a short amount of time and mostly just fuck up everything. Jinx and Vi decide to make up. This dysfunctional family has a chance of becoming, well, still dysfunctional, but at least together again. Seeing Victor work tirelessly, well, actually I don't know if he can get tired, on Vander shows that kind and compassionate man from Season 1. And watching Isha go around bringing Vander food and water was adorable. It was like she had already accepted him as family too. Then we have Caitlyn betraying, or coming to her senses I should say, against Mbessa. Ever since naming her commander, Mbessa's controlled Kate like a puppet, preaching these false ideas of revenge and retribution to get what she wants. I think Kate followed for experience and to get stronger, but she never trusts Mbessa. The blade cuts both ways, as they say. Her sparring session with Caitlyn is another of my favorite scenes for this specific line. Your speed is improving, but eventually you need force. Too much force exposes you to risk. Deploying an army to bring back a supposed bloodthirsty beast and having your commander betray you would definitely be a risk from too much force. Vi bringing up that trust to Mbessa before capturing her like a Pokemon was the perfect ya done messed up AA Ron moment, because it's the one thing Mbessa could never achieve. Then, perhaps the most outlandish decision, Jace blows a giant fucking hole in his best friend. We get no context to the situation at this point, but the lore is similar to the game. Jace causes a giant explosion that kills all of the people Victor was trying to save. Difference in Arcane is that Vander is also present, and that explosion reverses all of the progress Victor has made on his mind. That man goes berserk and absolutely bodies Rictus. I haven't mentioned him yet, but I do have a quick theory. I believe he is Riven's father. The runes he uses in the show are similar to the ones on her sword, and her lore states her father was a Noxian soldier slain in battle. Rictus, Noxian soldier, slain in battle. Well, not really slain, more like mauled to death, but same difference. And from this point on, all hell breaks loose. What went from another potential turning point has brought us to the point of no return.
That which inspires us to our greatest good is also the cause of our greatest evil.
Act 3 is what I'm calling the resolution, because like it or not, we're getting one. And what was becoming a tighter and more concise story has just opened itself back up again. What will Jinx do with Isha gone? Will Caitlyn stay with Vi? Is Vander going to be okay? Is Victor truly dead? What the hell happened to Jace? And I still haven't even covered Mel's escape from the Black Rose. So much with only 3 episodes left, but I still feel like I'm forgetting something. Yeah, you almost forget that Echo and Heimerdinger were with Jace at the Hexgate failsafe because we've had virtually no update on them. However, episode 7 was a fantastic switch-up, probably my favorite episode of the entire season. A nice palate cleanser for the debauchery we just witnessed. While Jace gets sent out to Chernobyl, Echo and Heimer end up in a world that is strangely similar but vastly different. This is the supposed world that would have happened if the initial job failed, and Loki kinda wish it had. Yeah, you know, they pouring out for the homies, but this city is filled with life. You know, a lack of war tends to do that. And in this world, Jinx, rather Powder, is someone who creates rather than destroys. With her help, Echo is able to recover pieces of a hex crystal and create a time loop anomaly. coinciding with his Z-Drive time-shifting abilities in-game. I thought the nod to the loop being only a max of 4 seconds was a nice touch, as his ultimate in-game will also send him back 4 seconds. With a noble sacrifice from the Goatheimer, he's able to return back to his world. I'm not actually sure if Heim is dead. I mean, whatever happens to him looks pretty similar to what happens to Echo and Jace, so could just be in a different dimension. But the use of that portal in this world has caused something very interesting to happen. Echo basically introduced this world to Hextech and left its blueprints behind. All you would need is more crystals, which Powder has a whole stash of by her memorial for Vi. Seeing Echo go away and this idea of time loops and different timelines confirmed to her, I think she's either going to try and recreate the very anomaly to go back before Vi dies, or send herself to a timeline where she's alive. It was just cool to think about another potential story happening at the same time as the one that we're already watching. From a world without Hextech to a world destroyed by it. That's what Jay sees. It's lifeless, tragic, feels like the setting to a horror movie. The only beings he sees are these strange robot creatures, perhaps failed subjects of the glorious evolution. Not quite dead, but by no means alive either. Half of me was thinking, you know what, deserve Jace. You're a dickhead, a show-off, and are about to go on a kill streak. This struggle was part of the wake-up call he needed, battling against his own invention. Still don't know how he managed to scale these floating platforms in his condition, but he reaches the summit, and at the center of it, himself, or what's left of him. The harsh reality is, you can't end the world's suffering. There's no prize to perfection, only an end to pursuit. Jace realizes he is the only one who can stop this, so he's sent back to finish the job. Listen, if this guy is one thing, it's determined. Let's take a quick count of our characters, because after diverging again, we also again start to bring everything back together. It's become one of the big issues with this being the final season. Characters have pretty big scenes, but then will disappear for episodes on end, only to get thrusted right back into the story. One of those characters being Mel, but thankfully her backstory isn't too confusing. Mbessa had an affair with someone that created a child to be born with incredible abilities. That first was believed to be her brother Kino, but after her capture by the Black Rose, her powers awaken and the Black Rose recruits her to stop Mbessa's rampage. I felt we could have gone much more into detail here on her powers, the Medardas as a whole, the Black Rose, but I'm expecting Mel to return in a future show, so maybe they decided to leave those explanations until then. And now Victor, recently shot by his best friend, has given up on all humanity for the glorious evolution and chooses to fix everyone, even if it means controlling them as soldiers. Man, this shit made me sad because virtually none of Victor's humanity remains, and we even see Sky start to back away from him. And at their final goodbye, when he says he'll miss their talks, she hits him with the, "No you won't," knowing full well he doesn't have the emotions to do that. But hey, you know what always puts me in a better mood? Lesbians. Jinx has surrendered herself after the incident and is currently in a jail cell. After Vi attempts to console her and help, she hits the zippy zap into "I'm gonna go log off IRL." Vi, obviously distraught and concerned for the well-being of her sister, decides to have steamy sex in a jail cell. Again, not upset, but your sister is going to kill herself. You gotta believe there's a time and place. A storm is coming, one of which the likes of Piltover or Runeterra has ever seen. Well, check the watch, we only got one episode left, hardly enough for a storm, maybe a drizzle at best. This is where the story lost me. All of the resolutions felt forced, like they realized they were out of time and still decided, perfect time to start a war. I will say, I did like the intro scene of Jinx burning down Silco's office. With this, she could finally be free of him and quote-unquote break the cycle. War begins, start blasting, people dying, Vi completely useless, and no justice for my goat Loris. He was like a big brother to Vi, joined the enforcers with her, was always carrying her home after getting drunk, and was waiting by her bedside after the explosion. And how does he get repaid? With some lame-ass arrows taking him out because Vi's gate defense lasted 3 seconds. Hey, at least we still got Fish Guy. Don't know his name, but that guy always seems to come up clutch. Then, Caitlyn is betrayed by Maddie. You know, always knew she was a bitch, never trust anybody with a Scottish accent. Tries to act all innocent and like she was just doing her job, but that muzzle flash got her smiling like the Joker. Mel's headshot deflection leads to her fighting Ambessa with Caitlyn, and that leads to Mel to call in the Black Rose. This presumably would be to help kill her, but then she stops the Black Rose just for Ambessa to die anyways. Still to this day, I do not understand that scene. Bigger issue than Ambessa would be the entire populace becoming products of the Glorious Evolution. But thanks to some perfect interference from Echo, Jace becomes spirit buddies with Victor, they touch dips and disintegrate. I mean, they might not be dead, kinda looks like another anomaly occurs and takes them to a different dimension. And I believe we need to have some discourse right now, because there's something going on, and not a lot of people are talking about it. Echo is by far the most disrespected character, but arguably the MVP of the whole damn show. Creates Hextech from scratch to get back to his world, loses his mentor, stops Jinx from killing herself, and disrupts the Glorious Evolution. He does all that, and you're telling me you can't help up my guy from the rubble? And now, with no more Glorious Evolution, no one is under control anymore, including Vander. But instead of rejoining her sister, Vi decides to just stare and look at him. It's a weird decision to hedge your bets on the large wolf monster instead of your sister who was just about to off herself. Of course, in predictable fashion, Vander comes to and tries to maul Vi, and Jinx is left to sacrifice herself anyways. However, we all know Arcane loves their misdirection, so I fully believe Jinx is alive. Right before the explosion happens, we see a pink bolt near the top of the screen, similar to the dash that Jinx can do because of Shimmer. It's likely she was able to dash to one of the air ducts shown by the schematic Caitlyn views at the end. Not sure what happened to Vander though. It's kinda hard to believe that if bullets were having zero effect on him, that a tiny grenade would take him out, but he's gone for the time being. It was very quick thinking by Jinx, but she saw this as her only opportunity to break the cycle. She truly had to rid herself from her sister in order for anything to change. Without her, Vi could be with Caitlyn and finally live her life without any distractions. Plus, we know that Jinx wanted to pilot one of those blimp Airbus things, which is what I believe we see flying away in the distance. Again, just gotta leave Echo behind. Why does that guy deserve any happiness? But you know what, I get it, break the cycle, yada yada. And then, it ends. The end of Arcane. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed a majority of Season 2, but the ending was rushed and scenes felt forced. I don't hate the choices, I just hate how we got here. Actually, no, I do kinda hate the choices. You're telling me that Singed, motherfucking Singed, is the only person getting a happy ending here? Nope, won't have it. I've heard that the final episode was supposed to be an hour and a half long, but due to Netflix had to be cut down to 40 minutes. It would have been great to have that extra time, but even that wouldn't have been enough. This source might be just, trust me bro, but I heard most of the content was the preparation between Jinx and Echo to join the fight. That would have been great to see, especially since we never got to see how Echo somehow stopped Jinx from blowing herself up, but it wouldn't have improved anything else. If anything, I think a whole nother season was needed. Make this one build up towards the war, and the third be the actual war. Now I find myself just looking back at the season, finding ways where time could have been used better. Using music videos to tell stories I think is fine, but when we're getting content we've seen before, I think progressing the story normally would have been a better choice. It's fine for a song like Sucker that introduces new content in the meeting of Isha, but take for example Hellfire. We essentially retell the invasion of Zaun we just witnessed. Dope song and visuals, but we probably don't need like 2 of these each episode. With 3 other shows already confirmed to be in the works, you can't help but feel we got the Game of Thrones treatment. Perhaps one of the greatest shows of all time squandered because people got bored and wanted to make a Star Wars movie. While Arcane's case is not quite as egregious, perhaps Riot saw the success and thought rather than taking the time to create the highest quality show possible, would create as many shows possible to get that moolah up. That being said, I still leave Arcane in a positive light and was happy to see an adaptation of one of my favorite games mostly do it justice. If you saw Arcane Season 2, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. I'm sure this video has felt very yappy, but with all the content packed into a final season, I felt that I couldn't omit important information to the story. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That's all for this time. I hope to see you here again very, very soon.